Hi guys, Pingyao here. Welcome to a brand new series and a brand new city, New Falmouth, and this is going to be a completely different city from what I'd previously done, Santa Caprizia, which unfortunately has pretty much died a death. I had some big problems with the city towards the last few weeks, really just lagging and really just the detail was getting so heavy, I think, that it was causing a lot of problems. I had problems loading the city, and with the Sunset Harbours update or DLC, that really just finished it off, and since then I haven't been able to load the city correctly. Half the buildings have disappeared, all the roads have gone, I get error messages all over the place, so I thought it would be better just to start again, just to start from scratch. And it's a shame because I really wanted to try and get that city certainly in some kind of finished state, but it just wasn't going to happen. So hopefully with starting again, I should be able to finish a project, which would be good. And also do a series that's got some kind of conclusion to it, rather than just me building things in episodes and then ending up with nothing. So that's kind of why I'm doing this, is to just start from fresh and hopefully get something that resembles a finished city, a finished project. So, New Falmouth. What are we looking at here? Well, I was thinking that I've done a lot of sort of semi-arid desert cities, and I wanted to do something a little bit different, make it more kind of a northern city, sort of not European or Scandinavian or anything like that, but certainly a kind of a northern North American city. So it's got a kind of New England feel, possibly a Northwest America feel, Oregon or somewhere around there. That kind of climate is what I'm thinking, but I'm aiming more towards the sort of New England neck of the woods, just because I think the assets I've got, all the models I've got, buildings and so forth, would fit quite well with that kind of city. So at the moment I'm thinking this would be sort of New England way, maybe sort of, I don't know, Maine or somewhere around there. The map itself has got a lot of lush sort of hills and mountains and things on it, so it would fit quite well with that. I am using the map which is called Ortiguera in Spain, and it's by somebody called Juan Miguel. And Juan has only uploaded one map onto the workshop, so he's literally just done one asset, but the map, I think, looks really cool, and it's got lots of pretty good variation to it as a map. You've got these sort of bays and inlets and things. Obviously you've got the mountains here, but there's also quite a reasonable amount of more flat sort of ground, so areas that I can level out to build the sort of centre of the city, I suppose, and some of the suburbs. There's quite a lot of reasonably flat ground to it, but it is surrounded pretty much by these hills, which I think I'll keep. I can't imagine I'm going to be reducing, taking these mountains out. I think they really add to the map, and it's a shame to edit it too much. But what I do tend to do when I get these maps is, particularly the ones that are generated by satellite data, is just to go in and tidy up some of the glitches, because you can get little kind of artifacts rather that the satellite data imagery can create sometimes, And on the whole, the map's pretty good, it's pretty clean, but there are little areas which I just wanted to try and focus on and also add some extra detailing here. On the coast there, just adding some little rocks, but also breaking up some of those big mountain sides as well, which they can look a bit unrealistic with just a big sort of sheer rock face there. So I'm trying to reduce some of that and also add in things like cliffs and stuff like that. But this is just, this is entirely up to the individual. I just like to add my own little details in, and I think all these extra landscape details will pay off later on, because ideally you want to get your map pretty much finished, or at least in some kind of finished form, before you start building your city. So that was my kind of feeling here. I wanted to get it to a point where I was happy with the base landscape, but as I say, the map itself was great. There's nothing wrong with it, but I just wanted to add my own little touches. This here was a bigger river. You can see actually the cliffs either side of that stream. That was where the river was in terms of the width, and I reduced it by at least a third or 2/3, I guess, from what it was, and I think that just makes it look a bit more like a natural stream rather than a great big river coming down through the mountains there. And again, me just being a bit more sort of pedantic, a bit more fussy with how the map looks. The water physics in the game is pretty good. I mean, it does react naturally, like water, but it can be problematic sometimes when you're moving terrain around and the water jumps about a lot, and especially down on the flatter region. I found that when I was moving the terrain around, I was juggling the water around so much, you almost have to let the water settle a good 20 minutes or so after, particularly if it's a big body of water, before going back in, because I was editing the terrain, the water was moving around, but then when I re-edited it, because the water had moved around, it was moving the water around again, and I ended up editing the terrain about 5 times more than I should have done, purely because I hadn't allowed the water to settle. So if there's one thing I would suggest you do when you're editing these maps, particularly with rivers and inlets, this is the example here, is let your water settle in between doing the editing, because otherwise you're going to be forever editing the terrain and that water is just going to be moving around constantly. But I guess that's just the fact that the physics on the water is so good on this game. I mean, it really does react like water reacts. So I guess a little bit of a lesson that I learnt there. I hadn't done too much terrain editing, I suppose. I did a bit of terrain editing in the previous city, Santa Caprizia, but I did a lot more in this. I spent a good day just sitting down and going through the map and pushing the terrain down here, just trying to get it lower, because I like to have the particularly the coast to be much lower, or at least a few meters or so from the sea level, rather than having a steep embankment going down to the sea, because I don't think that looks very realistic. But that's one of the problems when you don't let the water level settle, because then the water was lapping up over my area that I'd lowered, and I then thought, well, maybe I have to raise it up a bit more, and of course then I ended up with the problem where the water was too low. So yeah, this is me just fiddling about here with these levels, but it worked out eventually. I kind of just almost gave up eventually and thought, well, that'll do. But yeah, I mean, it's just you just got to get used to how the game works, how the physics works. But I think generally the terrain tools are really good, and you can be very, very precise. I mean, I'm working down to the sort of meter here, literally getting a meter or two above the level of the water, just to try and get that realism working. And now finally adding some kind of details in, or some decals rather, onto the map. And this is the start of the city building proper, I would say now. Adding some decals in. I decided to build on an area just to the... I don't actually know which direction it is at the moment. It might be north, it might be east. I can't decide, to be honest, which direction it is. But anyway, it's the main inlet that comes into the map, and it's on the left side as the water flows out to the sea. Although here the water's actually flowing in from the sea, so that's a little bit confusing. And I'm guessing, I don't actually know the reason why the water's flowing in from the sea, because it's not tidal as such. But hey ho, anyway, it doesn't really matter. But anyway, this is the first part of the city proper that I'm doing here, and just starting randomly by building some little kind of piers and things. I guess it's more feeling your way, just working out how it's all sort of working, and not really knowing what I'm building, to be honest. I just thought I'd have a go at putting a pier in, and I guess it's a little bit kind of unplanned at this stage, because I knew that this area is going to be pretty central to the sort of downtown area of the city, but I didn't really know what I was doing. And it was only when this pier had gone in and I thought, what about if I build a little kind of industrial area here? Start off by doing a bit of maybe a little oil refinery or something like that. So that's what I decide to do. I make some oil tanks, and I put a little kind of I don't know what it is really. It's like a little oil storage depot or something in. It's a slightly random start to the city, but I don't think there's any harm in being a bit random. Most people, I suppose, start with the downtown. I'm starting with the oil storage depot. Now these are kind of earth embankments which I put in, and I saw an oil refinery or an oil depot somewhere on Google Maps. I can't remember where it was now, and it had these kind of earth embankments around it, which I guess is to reduce, I'm not sure why actually that would be. I was going to say maybe it's to absorb oil or something, any leaks, something like that, to stop it going into the ground or something around it. I'm not sure, but anyway, I put those in, and eventually I put some plants and things around them, some weeds and stuff like that, just to give it a bit of detail. But then I'm starting here to add the actual pipes in, and I'm using the PO mod here just to add these pipe details, basically extending some of the elbow joints to just make the pipe work from the tanks. Which is quite interesting. I quite like doing these sort of details. I think it's quite good to add some of this sort of detail in, although I'm aware that the more I do of this, the laggier the city will get in the future. So it's going to be a trade-off really in terms of how much detail I can actually put in, because I don't want the city to just lag to the point where I can't basically build anything in it, which is what was happening with Santa Caprizia, the previous city. I was just finding it was lagging so much, it was just taking me forever just to move the camera around, let alone build stuff. So it's something I'm going to be very, very mindful of as I grow and build this city. But yeah, putting these little pipes in, quite fun to do, I think, just doing this kind of oil depot. And I think that's the thing, really, is just have a bit of fun. If you want to build a oil storage depot, then why not? Go ahead. Some of these are vanilla assets, I think. Some of them are actual workshop assets, and it's just a question of combining the two, putting some of these little joint details in, things like that. Sometimes you put a detail in and everything just sort of comes together, and that's really what happened with this build. I was a little bit kind of unconvinced, and then suddenly when you put just one little thing in, it all makes sense and it all seems to just click into place. Yeah, quite an enjoyable first build for the city. So what I'm doing here is putting in a it's kind of like a gas station, but I'm using this as like a refueling bay for tankers to come in and basically pick up their oil or their petrol, their diesel, whatever, from the tanks, and then go out to the petrol stations and resupply the city. So it's basically going to be used as a kind of a refueling supply for tankers and things. So this is what this little kind of garage roof structure is going to become. And I thought I'd add some pipes and things, because there was an example I saw on Google Maps which had a structure like this with lots of pipes and things feeding out from the tanks onto this kind of structure, and then the tankers underneath would then simply be refueled. But anyway, thanks guys. Thanks for watching episode 1. I'm going to sign off now and leave you with a few little cinematics, and I shall bid you farewell. Do subscribe to the channel if you haven't already subscribed, and I shall see you in episode 2. Hopefully not so long a break in between episodes. I'm hoping to do one every week or so, but do bear with me if it's a little bit longer. But yeah, anyway, thanks again. I'm going to stop rambling. I'm signing off. Cheers. Bye.